we usually don't have business problems. We've got personal problems that manifest in our business.
I feel like that sometimes.
We've got an epidemic of people that don't know how to feel. And that's evident in the prices of alcohol skyrocketing through COVID, everyone's sedating, overworking. We're all attempting to run away from a feeling.
Most people wait until something significant happens in their life.
Yeah.
And then it all falls apart.
Correct. The underlying driver, the question that we need to ask ourselves is, why am I chasing that? What's pushing me towards that? It's that I want to feel something, right?
It's the fear of admitting you want it, because then you've got to do something about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The fear of admitting that you're not happy with where you are, because then now, if you admit it and you believe what you say, now you got to do something. Welcome back to another episode of $1 Million Days. Now, for the first time, guys, we are joined by a special guest, but also we are missing one of the hosts. So George will not be with us today, but I am joined by a gentleman who I've been following his story for quite some time. I think we just confirmed it was around 2016, 2017, and I've been following you on Instagram, and I've known him online for about 7 years, and we met for the first time today. Fabien, welcome to the show.
Thanks, brother. This is crazy, isn't it? It's like online dating, but we finally,
Yeah,
finally
it's
made
like,
it.
it's like, oh, he is real. He is real, yeah. He is the person that he says he is. For those who haven't had a chance to, I guess, haven't come across any of your content or anything, do you want to give us a little bit of an intro about, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll sort of take the conversation from there.
Sure, man. Cool. Well, yeah, I'm honored to be here, man. It's, as we were just saying before offline, it was like, haven't met before, and then we're meeting for the first time straight on a podcast.
Straight into it.
No better way to do it.
Yeah. It's recorded now.
Yeah.
That's
Cool. Well, yeah. What am I? 39-year-old father of three, married, 10 years now, and I work in the space of unresolved trauma. That's kind of my jam. I'm known as the trauma guy, if you will, helping people in relationships that have got, either recognizing toxic patterns, recognizing that stuff from their past is surfacing in the present, and they're either trying to find a way through, or have just come to the awareness that there's some stuff that they need to work through, but they just don't know how or where to start. And so I haven't always been this.
Yeah.
Probably unpack a little bit of that, but that's what we do. Born in Melbourne, and this is the space that I find myself in now. That
So you grew up in Melbourne as well?
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
And so how do you get into something like that?
I think it's a really good question, actually, because the coaching space, right? It's like there's one of two places people come from. One is unconscious, I reckon, i.e. that we become the coach that we need most. So some people in the coaching industry are operating from a place where they actually need that help that they're offering themselves.
So almost like they're doing it for themselves, and
Correct.
they end up forming into this being that then goes on.
Which is why the coaching industry is riddled with, every industry is riddled with it, but coaching industry in particular is riddled with people that haven't necessarily been able to create the results that they're claiming that they can create for others. They're still working through it.
Yeah. I also think that in itself as well, two things. One, it's not like you never clock this shit. Like you never, that's it, you're done, you're perfect. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
Two, but also there's no barrier to entry. Do you know what I mean? Like there's no, I can go, you see, 19-year-old kid straight out of school claiming to be a coach. And you're like, what experience do you have, dude? Do you know what I mean? And I think that's a part of the problem.
That's true. It's interesting because I'm conflicted with that. The reason being is that a 19-year-old kid, as an example, if he's solved a particular problem in his life,
that's experience.
Now, can he then be a coach? Well, yes, but I think a coach's ability is whether they can help somebody else actually move through that as well. Because when I was a leader as a salesperson, I was the number one sales performer at an office, at a real estate office, and that was a previous career. And then I became a sales manager. That was a fucking different beast. I was trying to lead people the way that I would push myself, and it didn't go down well. I remember
different characters.
Different characters. Yeah. I remember pulling a team meeting and no one rocked up because they're like, fuck this guy. And I was like, to my boss, I'm like, what management courses should I take? Because I was like, I didn't know. But kind of coming back to how I got into this space, there's something that I got told once, which was, your mess becomes your message. And I had some
your mess becomes your
mess
message.
becomes your message. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I like that.
Pain into purpose, kind of, that whole notion.
Yeah, awesome.
So from my perspective, I was looking for answers, but I had stuff that was unresolved, and I kind of knew it, given some of my upbringing and stuff that I'd went through, but it didn't really rear its head until I became a father, and that's when 2019 was really when my life began to kind of fall apart, the dark night of the soul. And I'd done coaching previously as an NLP practitioner, master certified and all that kind of jazz. But I was going around, quote unquote, fixing others. And there was some stuff that I actually hadn't addressed. So I was operating, but my business wasn't really going anywhere because I was kind of getting in the way. And that's what led me into this trauma work, because I'd recognized, shit, I've got some stuff way down in the closet that I haven't been able to process or deal with. I've got no fucking idea. And 2019, I kind of had no choice. I was just a kid on the way. I already had a 1-year-old, another baby on the way. So our 1-year-old just turned 1. Wife was pregnant with our second child. I was looking at a jail sentence of potentially 5 years.
You were?
Yeah, got into a fight. Guy was drunk. Wasn't our fault initially, but I won't go into all the detail of it. But he got drunk, he threw some punches, he missed, defended ourselves, and then he ended up on the ground, unconscious, cracked skull, induced coma, 2-3 weeks, and we didn't know if this guy was going to wake up. So I got a business, we've just renovated a house, I've got all this unresolved stuff from my childhood surfacing because I didn't know how to show up and be a dad, I didn't really know how to be a present husband, all of this, like, what do I do here? And then this court case, and then I'd had priors from earlier years as well, from, just being a stupid 17-year-old. And I was like, shit, I was sitting at the crossroads of like all the money going into this court case, no money left, business failing, life crumbling. And then it's like, shit, I actually may have to go to jail and my wife will be raising 2 kids. I won't see my second child born. And she'll be raising 2 children, and I'll be in prison potentially for 5 years or more. So I was like, wow, that was kind of like this, what am I going to do? How do I get out of this? And that's when I reached out for help in a business community, actually. I was still not looking for personal help. I was looking for business help. I'm like, well, if I can get the business sorted.
Yeah, you're like, if I just get some money in, this would solve most of these problems.
And that's when I learned a beautiful thing that I got taught, which is, we usually don't have business problems. We've got personal problems that manifest in our business. And that's when I learned about this whole notion of nervous system regulation, and that we all relate to the world through our nervous system. And that's going back to the point of the mess becoming the message. That was the point of like, oh, wow, okay, time to go deep and look at really what's driving all of this, all of my behavior, all of the chaos, all of the carnage, and work through my stuff intensely for like 3 years in the
throughout
space.
COVID.
Throughout COVID, yeah, went hard. Fortunately, didn't go to prison. Fortunately, the court saw, there was evidence in my favour, and went down the rabbit hole of real personal deep transformation and healing, and came out, and then almost jumped straight back into, okay, now I've got to give this to the world.
Yeah. But isn't that what everyone does, right? Like you go learn something, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I have to show everyone.
Exactly.
You guys all should all come join my cult.
Yeah,
and everyone's like, whoa. You're being weird, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And funnily enough, I did that. And then I came out and I'd realized, just because I've gone through it, am I ready to guide others through it yet? And I wasn't. And so I'd started it and then I just retreated, and I'm like, man, I'm not ready to lead other people yet in this, because taking on other people's stuff whilst navigating your own through COVID, and mind you, we had another kid my wife was pregnant again 12 months later after, our second child. So we had
Wasting no time.
three kids under the age of 3. Ultimately, my first child turned 3, and we were pregnant with our third. So I was like, wow, no TV during COVID.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that's kind of what happened. So the mess eventually became the message, and I slowly recognized that if I'm going to work in this space, I not only have to keep working through my things, but I've also got to create support mechanisms to enable me to still show up as a father, as a husband, as a leader for my family, whilst then being able to guide other people through it as well. So it's not just about having the flashlight to take somebody through a dark tunnel. It's about having the resources when things don't go to plan.
Yeah.
You need more than a flashlight.
Yeah.
So
if it runs out of batteries, you step in a puddle.
Yeah,
Things get wrong. You fall over.
yeah, man. Yep.
Let's touch on that, man. So the nervous system, did you say? Mm-hmm. Tell me a bit about it. Because I would say I'd like to think I'm well versed in this space, in the sense of I've done coaching programs. I've done like a lot of Tony Robbins stuff and, NLP.
Yeah.
A lot around coaching and influence and things like that, right? As well as understanding, human behavior and why we do what we do and the model of the world and the way we see it and what is it that drives us and things like that. So when you say everyone sees the world or takes the world in through their own nervous system.
Yep.
Let's go deep.
All right, let's go, man. I need a whiteboard.
Let's go.
Yeah, so
Talk me through it.
Well, I think we all, those that are listening to this podcast, we're all probably very similar. Everyone's looking for growth, for tactics, for tools, for strategies, for performance, right? To break through something, to acquire more information. And similar to yourself, I think we all get introduced to personal development through the Tony Robbins or the Brian Tracy's of the psychology of stuff, And for a long time, what we all understood and what many people still think is the answer is that, thinking creates feeling. And what I discovered was that it's actually not that. It's actually feeling that influences thinking. So what I mean by that is that most of us, including myself, when I was doing NLP and personal development, all the programs, read all the books, hundreds of books, I was trying to think my way out of a feeling problem, which is why I became aware of some of my stuff, like you probably did as you went on this journey. You start to go, oh shit, this thing in my childhood, oh shit, that, and oh fuck, man, this insecurity here, and but then if you're anything like me, which I think you are, man, it's like we immerse more of ourselves to go, well, I've got to be better, got to get better. And a lot of us are trying to outrun a feeling problem by thinking, by logistically working stuff out in our head. And so this whole notion of nervous system and what that does is, like, there's a great book by Dr. Bessel van der, can't pronounce his name, but it's called The Body Keeps the Score.
Oh, yes, I've got that book. I haven't read it.
Yeah, powerful book. And it just talks about how when we experience things growing up and, parents fighting, getting yelled at, getting lost, being bullied, being teased, whatever, when we experience a situation that is a little bit too overbearing, or we can't make sense of it, we can't defend ourselves properly, then we've all got this beautiful system within us that actually comes in to support us through that moment. And that's called the nervous system. So a lot of psychology talks about the amygdala, the brain, the crocodile brain, which is...
So for people listening, the amygdala is like kind of like your fight or flight reaction, like when you don't think things through and you instant, like if you touch something that's hot, you don't sit there and say, wow, this is hot, I should probably take my hand off.
Yeah.
No, your amygdala quickly warns you and boom.
Correct.
It's like would you call it fight or flight?
Yep. So it's the reptilian part of the brain.
Yeah, the oldest part.
The oldest part, And it's designed specifically for times when we're like, shit,
survival.
Is a saber-toothed tiger going to chase me? This thing needs to kick into gear. And so I kind of talk to the amygdala being like the security guard or your bodyguard. So it's there when you're not there. When you're not quick enough to respond to a situation, this will kick into gear to protect you.
Like a parent will pull their kid out of the water, like if they're drowning.
Yeah, exactly. The other part that connects to that that is all-encompassing, which I call like the secret services or the legionnaires, being French I am, is your nervous system.
So what did you call the first one, sorry?
The amygdala, the bodyguard.
The bodyguard,
So
okay.
it's like the bodyguard. It's like you're walking around and you've got this
Make sure straight away,
you got this big thing walking around.
Okay. And then the second one's a secret service?
And then I call it like the secret services. It's less obvious.
Background.
So the
studies.
bodyguard, at times can be ego, as an example, where it's like you're coming in, you're being more boisterous, more cocky, more arrogant because there's what's perceived to be a threat. So when we're talking about ego dynamics, what most people don't see is that there is a potential threat occurring in the moment for somebody. There's a part of them feeling inadequate.
And that's,
And then so the security guard turns into, this kind of, peacock, as an example.
Yeah, like look how good, like to show them how good you are, so that they don't see, they don't see through the curtain.
Exactly. Yeah. But what we didn't know for a long time, and what a lot of people in the personal development space don't recognize, is that if you're listening now in particular, and somebody's like, but I've done all this work, but yet something still feels off. Like
I feel like that sometimes. Man.
Yeah. That's what we're talking to right now. So this feeling that what's missing, or when I get to here, it's going to be okay. And I've heard you on previous podcasts where you've spoken about gratitude being a key to, enabling you to be grounded in the moment and to be grateful to help you progress. And it's very potent. But sometimes we can't escape this feeling, right? So we look to the external world to try to solve something that's happening inside. But what I said just before is that it's a feeling problem. And we're trying to solve it with thinking and doing. And so this whole notion of we all live our lives and relate to the world through our nervous system is that when we experienced events growing up that were challenging, our amygdala and our nervous system work hand in hand to set off a response: fight, flight, fawn, freeze are usually the 4 responses that your nervous system will go through. All right? Fight, flight is fighting, flighting.
Yeah, explain them for those listening.
Yeah, and fawning is like people pleasing and being extra nice when you're feeling a bit under pressure or a bit scared.
And lots of people do that.
Lots of people do that. And then the freeze response is like, and we've all seen it with kids and ourselves, like something happens and then the lights are on but nobody's home.
Yeah.
Like, this like car crash, somebody losing a hand, trauma, big trauma events. It's what's called disassociation. We freeze. So when that occurs, this system's powerful because it's actually helping us in the moment. It's helping us deal with a situation that we can't deal with. We can't cognitively be available for in the moment. The challenge that most of us didn't realize is that when you experience those events and you haven't then been able to process and remove the energy from those events, then that becomes your go-to response on how you do life throughout your life. Meaning that the moment you're an adult and you get triggered by your partner, the kids set you off, a business still falls through, whatever, like you're hustling, and something is really stressful in the moment, we all revert back to our stress response from when we were children. So if your response as a child was to fight, you're going to find yourself now being the hustler. I'm going to force this through. I'm going to push. You find yourself getting really frustrated, agitated, angry. If yours was a flight response, you're going to find yourself in situations constantly running away. Like, I can't deal with this. I'm done. I can't. Going.
Avoidance, right?
Avoidance. If your strategy was fawning, the people-pleasing sides of things, you're going to find yourself being very much, hey, trying to massage things through all the time, abandoning yourself to make others happy and doing everything for your family.
Putting everyone else
first, And if your response was fawn, as a freeze, then you're likely to be the person that is, in the relationship scene that I work with in particular, like you're not emotionally available. You're not there for me. It's like he's here, but he's not. The women are usually saying that. Or you find yourself sedating and just zoning out constantly for periods of time. They're your responses. But and that's the whole point of, we live our lives and relate to the world through our nervous system. So when our nervous system is activated, we go back to our childhood response, and that's what's running the show in our adult relationships.
So would you say that's tied directly with your, like we talk about a lot about, conscious mind, like you consciously do things and then a lot of stuff we do is habitual or unconscious, right?
Yeah.
Is that directly tied to that?
100%. Yeah. So the work that I kind of guide people through is going from unconscious into conscious. Unconscious meaning that the ego is running the show. The wounds are running the show. That little person inside of you who's still stuck, who's still trapped, is kind of dictating the show. And we've got to get to a point of becoming conscious, where I call it soul, your innate essence. In other words, authenticity.
As in your soul?
Authentic, as in your soul, as in who are you authentically? Who are you with all the layers removed?
Yeah, with
at the
no
bare.
mask, no mask.
Exactly, exactly. So, it was a fascinating concept. And at the start, it didn't make fucking sense because, for me in particular, like being a man, if you're a man listening to this, it's like we still want to go up in here in the logic side of things and make sense of it. Well, okay, where's the practicality of this? Like, what do I need to do?
Yeah. How can I use this?
And my coach at the time, my guide is like, you're not getting it, Fabien. It's like, you got to drop in. And so getting into this process of actually feeling safe dropping into the body is this whole notion of how we start to begin the process of actually changing these responses so that we're no longer reacting to life. We now have the capacity to respond to life by choice. When we're in a place of reacting, we actually don't have choice. And a lot of us think that we do, but we do have choice, but the choice is, do I want to stay alive or do I want to die? Because if the nervous system is perceiving a threat, or the amygdala, it perceives that you're going to die. So it will kick into automatic gear, kicks you out of the driver's seat, and it's like, don't worry, Robby, we'll take care of this.
Hijacks the brain.
Right? Yeah. So when people do things wrong or the relationship breaks down, I hear this all the time. They're like, he had a choice or she had a choice. And I'm like, well, they do, but it's a choice between whether they want to stay alive or not. That's what their system is telling them, which is why we end up doing things, that we're not so proud of sometimes. So...
Okay, so there's those 4 main reactions.
Yeah.
That people will take. And then do you just change the way we react? Like, what is it? How do you fix it? Do you know what I mean? How do you know there's something wrong?
Sure. How do you know that something's wrong? Well, life reveals to you, usually in your relationships in particular, where you're not free. That's the first thing that I say. So how do you know something's wrong? Well, when your reactions to life are not proportionate to the situation that's at hand.
Like someone who flips their shit over getting cut off on the road.
Correct.
And you're like, dude, relax.
Yeah,
like he probably didn't see you.
Yeah.
And they
like,
go bananas. Yeah.
Absolutely bananas. It's like, oh, okay,
It's a big reaction, yeah.
You've got a child. They spill something on the table. This was very common in my household growing up. Knock over some water. I'd either cop a slap. It's a big outburst. And it's like, it was just water on the table, So now when my kids spill it, I can find myself at times like this volcano is going to erupt, and then it's like, ooh, I'm about to erupt. And then I've got to go through a process of regulating, bringing myself back into the moment and recognizing it's just a glass of water.
How do you do that?
By becoming aware that you're actually in the response.
So catching yourself.
Yeah, correct, which is very hard to do. It sounds easy, but it's extremely hard to do, especially at the beginning phases of this work. We can't see ourselves in our own wounds. We're blinded by them. We're blinded by our own ego at times. Because why? It's the bodyguard, but it's an invisible one.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, I'm like, you think you chose your thoughts? You didn't. Your environment did. Your unconscious did.
Yeah.
Your habits did. Like
mate.
the things that we don't, the beliefs that you haven't even thought about. You're so sure in those beliefs that you don't even question them.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And all that impacts everything you do. It's like you think you're in control. You're not in control.
No. Nope.
You are not in control.
It's an illusion.
It's an illusion. Dude, it is such an illusion.
Yeah, man. Yep.
Yeah, it's a very interesting. I find it personally. I find like that whole, psychology, feelings, human behavior.
Yep.
I find it super, super interesting space. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I feel like the more you learn, the more you realize how much you don't know. And you're like, man, like I thought I had this shit down pat, and then I found this out, and now there's like a whole other thing that's opened up.
It's crazy, man. It's this relentless pursuit. I always say inside of my community to like people, I'm like, we're actually unlearning
The bad stuff.
Yeah, we're learning by unlearning. By actually, it's about actually
Dropping the shit.
shedding. And more being rather than doing. It's not the work isn't actually doing, it's more being. It's all in the moment of showing up.
So how do you know if you got something that you need to shed or let go? Like how would anyone listening to this, or myself, how would I know? Like if I've got something that I feel like I need to let go, but I feel like everything's fine. How would I know what would be like some of the key tells? You know what I mean?
Well,
because most people wait until something significant happens in their life.
Yeah.
And then it all falls apart.
Correct.
And then they're like, okay, now. And
the wake up call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I was listening to your podcast that you did with, I forget his name, but the gentleman from Canada.
Yeah. There's Dr. Russell Kennedy or Dr. Nima.
Nima.
Yeah.
Dr. Nima.
Yeah.
The guy you said he spoke to you, he the way he responded.
He triggered
rattled.
me.
Yeah.
He said, that was my first guy.
And you're like, hey, why'd you say it like this? How can you help me? And he told you to fly to Canada and whatever. And he was talking about how he went through some stuff and had a big
wake up
moment. Where it was like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And you hear it with so many people. Yes. You know, life is, and I've heard you say this too, and I hope you don't mind me sharing it.
Of course.
But I remember watching a video you recorded in your car, and you were talking about how your 3 kids just renovated their house, just went on a big trip, happily married, outside looking in, my life's perfect. Inside, mess.
Yeah.
And it's like, how do we fix the thing before it breaks?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I know.
Because some people, and you're very fortunate, you get that opportunity to make the correction. Some people don't. Do you know, some people, it's one and done.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Or it happens, they think they fixed it, they didn't, it happens again, and then it's done. And it's like...
It's very interesting, man. This is the part of where I suppose part of my message is trying to, as we said earlier before we jumped on, was, you know, attempting to get people well before they need to have the significant, holy fuck, the dark night of the soul, the huge wake-up call that usually creates carnage that is sometimes very hard to repair.
Yeah, and sometimes irreparable.
Is sometimes irreparable, 100%. So I think the first thing is most of us know, there's an innate knowing. We all have wisdom inside of us, our own intuition. The way that our system has been designed has been meticulously designed for us to be able to, you know, pick up frequencies and energy as an example. Like, you know, you can go into a room and you can sense if people were talking about you beforehand, or somebody doesn't really like you, if you never, you know, or you meet somebody for the first time, you get a vibe. You know, they say your vibe attracts your tribe, you know.
That's actually a thing.
It's a thing. It's a thing, right? So I think the first thing is that most of us that are going through stuff, even unconscious, we know whether things are working for us or not working for us. Yeah? So you know for yourself if everything is happening perfectly for you, or there's areas where it's like, you know what, my health is not that great, my relationship here, finances there, there's like, there's going to be friction somewhere,
but
right?
Does anyone ever feel like everything's going perfectly?
I don't know. Some do.
You know, because I feel like the people who do, they're delusional to some degree.
Yeah, well, there's those people that are just, you know, on hopium, or they're smoking positivity.
What is it, hopium?
Hopium, yeah. So they're like, everything's good. They're always trying, and I did a podcast on this, like always being positive, because we're being conditioned to avoid pain when something bad happens. Hey, don't worry, just look at the bright side. Like somebody shares something with you about a struggle. Hey, man, don't worry, you live in Australia, dude.
There's a term for that. Is it toxic positivity or something?
Yeah.
Where they say like that is for example, you know, someone loses a child or something, and you're like, it's fine, you've got another one. It's like, dude, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like,
what that's actually an indication of is we've got, and this is what I talk to all the time, we've got a feeling epidemic here. We've got an epidemic of people that don't know how to feel. And that's evident in the prices of alcohol skyrocketing through COVID, everyone's sedating, overworking. We're all attempting to run away from a feeling or feel something through sedation. Okay? So this toxic positivity, as an example, is just an indication that when you've got something coming up in the moment, some emotion, and I haven't dealt with my stuff and I don't know what to do with my shit, somebody else brings theirs.
I'm going to help you bury it.
Hey, man, don't worry. Or when I see somebody cry and it makes me uncomfortable, because it's like, shit, as a kid, I got told, don't cry, this and that, boys don't cry, whatever the narrative is, somebody does, it's like, hey man, don't worry, like, you lost your job. Dude, you could be living in Africa now. You could be, in the middle of, and so we do that because we just don't know what to do with the feelings that are arising in the moment. But coming back to your point earlier, like, are people in that point of like, my life is perfect? I think where most people are, it's a generalization here, is that they're aware that things aren't functioning, but the perception is that that's normal. Because why? When you look around and you see your friends struggling and you see that couple going through shit and on TV here and the war over there, you're like, this is just fucking normal. You're meant to have chaos and carnage. Somebody's drinking too much, somebody's overworking, somebody's this. It's like, that's normal. So I call it like the gray zone or the dull zone or the death zone, really, of just going, well, and it's normal to have challenges, don't get me wrong. There's a big difference between challenges, like I've lost my job, money's a little bit tight, the children have got some health issues, to dysfunction. And there's a big difference between challenge and dysfunction. A lot of people are seeing challenges. A lot of people are seeing their dysfunction as challenges, not actually dysfunction where there's underlying issues driving behavior.
So, okay, how do you differentiate the two?
Well, challenge is you've lost your job. The business has decided we're scaling back. Your performance wasn't great, perhaps, or they're restructuring. It's like, hey, loss of job. That's a challenge. Okay. Dysfunction is, there was conflict taking place in the workplace, and you've lost your job, but because of some toxicity that was taking place, whether that was in the culture of the business and it just wasn't working, or whether because you were bringing in your stuff of my wife at home, this is what's going on, there's that. So the dysfunction is recognizing that if every night you need to drink 3 or 4 drinks every night, that's your thing, that's a sign of dysfunction, because that's not a normal thing. But if that's what you need to wind down, it's an indication that the nervous system is in a stress response, and the alcohol or the porn or the gambling or the whatever that thing is, the shopping,
your
outlet is
your vice,
attempting to help you neutralize the feeling that's happening in here, because you don't know how to process it. The only way that you've known how is to grab the bottle
and change
and then go, yeah. But because all of my mates do it, and it's like, hey man, what are you doing? Let's go to the footy, the pub. It's become normalized in that, well, fuck, everyone else is doing it, man. There's nothing wrong. Like, this is just normal. Yeah. But it is a sign of dysfunction. So that's the difference. And I think that's the challenge here, where we're in a society now where it's normal to overwork. It's normal to put your kids into school, into daycare, and to be separated from your family so much. It's normal to be, under stress and duress because everyone's in it, and this is just, so it's become very normalized right now, which is why most of us just accept this as the reality.
This conversation can go so many ways, man. I have so many questions. I have so many questions. Where do you start? Like,
does this land for you? Is this landing for you? I know, because we can reframe challenges, right? Like, well, hang on a minute, from a NLP perspective.
Yeah, this is one deeper.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, this is because when you first learn NLP, you think, and NLP, for those listening, stands for neuro-linguistic programming. And it's just basically changing the way you think, and that's supposedly, because the whole thing they teach is think, feel, do, get. And if you change the way you think, it should change how you feel.
Yeah.
But you're saying that this is the other way around.
It was my big aha. NLP is amazing. It was my first opening to some of the stuff that I had going on in my childhood.
Yeah.
NLP helps you kind of identify the structures, so the programs that you've been adopting from a child that has now shaped the way you view the world. And I call it like the movie mind, that we are the director of our own life. So each of us are the director of our own life. And so if you imagine yourself right now sitting in a cinema, as an example, and up on the screen is a movie
of your life,
of your situations right now. What most of us don't realize, and what NLP helps us with, is recognizing that the scene that is on the screen is something that you've influenced, that you've decided, that is eliciting particular responses in your life. And so most people have got a scene that's not serving them. Like, my parents were this, and my partner's that, or business is this, my friend's that. And so there's a scene up on the screen which is eliciting a negative response that they don't like. But most of us aren't aware that we're in a cinema, in a movie, and many are not aware that we're actually the director, and that at any given point we can actually change the scene.
You're in control.
Correct. So where unresolved trauma and nervous system comes into play is that you can reframe an event that's taken place. So, using NLP, which is like, this event has taken place, you maybe, let's just say you were hit as a child, okay? And it's like, well, my parents were under pressure. So if we were to go back and reframe it, it's like, well, they were doing the best that they could.
Yeah.
They were under pressure.
One of the best NLP presuppositions is like, people do the best they can with what they know at the time.
Correct. Which is true.
It's true, yeah.
Which is true. But so if we're going to reframe that and say, well, they did the best that they could, they were under pressure, I was probably being a little shit, which is where a lot of people go. I wasn't an easy child because they got told that, oh, you're so difficult. Your brother was easier, or your sister was, or whatever the narrative was. So we can go in and reshift it so that we can neutralize, kind of how we viewed what occurred to us. But what it misses is the physiological aspect of when we were hurt and smacked and our parents betrayed us, the people that we're meant to love. What happens to a child in that moment is they've got a choice. Every child has got to choose between a secure attachment, like, I need to make sure my fucking parents take care of me.
Yeah.
And
that's your survival.
That's my survival.
Point, yeah.
Secure attachment and my own authenticity. Who am I as a kid? How am I evolving? How do I show myself? And so when a child misbehaves or is running around exploring the world, because that's what we do as kids, and now we're just big kids still trying to do it, right? And then that is not agreed upon by the family because you do something, you break that thing, you do the wrong thing because you're experimenting, exploring, you're learning about boundaries, and you get hurt, whether it's physically or emotionally. You realize as a kid, it's not safe, Robby, to be myself.
Because the act of you being yourself caused you pain.
Correct. So then you realize, shit, my primary caregiver, the person that's going to make sure I'm fed and meant to take care of me, has just not acknowledged this and said, that's bad, or you're bad, or whatever you did is bad. So then the child in the moment has a choice. Do I want to keep being that and experiencing that? Or should I start to conform? And part of the conforming is the child has to self-abandon themselves to then create a secure attachment. And that's where they start to develop people-pleasing tendencies, avoidance strategies, anxiety. They change their own behavior to keep mum and dad happy.
And that's where conforming comes from, right?
Well, that's where conforming, or like, the two-faced sides of things even. So they'll conform in the home, but then when they're out there, like what I was conforming in the home, but then I was out there taking drugs as a 10-year-old, drinking and, looking like I was a good kid.
Wiling out. As soon as you'd get your release, you would
100%
overdo it.
Yeah.
Overcompensate.
And so why? Because I'm trying to return back to finding who I am. This is why we have the epidemic of, fuck, I don't know who I am anymore. Like, I'm lost in this relationship. Women after children, same thing. Like, fuck, who am I outside of a mother? I've forgotten that.
Oh, dude, I witnessed that firsthand with my mum.
Yeah.
Firsthand, like
deep.
Yeah, witnessed her once all the kids, like, because I got an older brother and a younger sister.
Yeah, okay. So you're middle child.
Middle child.
Ah,
yeah,
cool.
The favourite. Yeah, middle child. So when I'd grown up, moved out. Brother married, moved out, and then once my sister was kind of married and moved out, it's like it's almost like she lost her identity.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like, she's been a mum for 20 years.
Yeah, man.
And now that's it.
Yeah.
Like, what's next?
Yeah.
And now, and especially like when you do something for so long, it's so hard to change.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw her go through that. And continue to go through that now. Like it's and it's hard to witness because you start to think, oh, like you don't know. When you're a kid, you don't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
It's just your mum.
You just think it's
it's just life. Yeah, this is life.
Just
life's going.
how it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
this is what everyone's going through.
Yeah. It seems normal. And you look back and then you realize, like, oh yeah. And then you just try your best to not make the same mistakes. That makes sense. I'm sure you probably heard that line a
yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Not following the same footsteps kind of thing.
Yeah, more so like try and learn from them.
Yeah.
You know, things they teach you and the things that they do.
Yeah. Which is more from where we learn from.
What they
less
do.
about what they tell us and more about what they do. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Kids will do what you do, not what you say.
Yeah.
I don't have kids, but
I
feel like we've learnt.
Yeah.
You know that I don't have kids?
Well, no, as in like with the kids and they follow what you do.
Yeah,
because,
they follow what you
just
do.
some of the,
You learn
some of the words that
firsthand,
come
right?
out of my kids' mouth.
Yeah, and you're
I was
like, where'd you get that from?
You, Dad, you said it.
Yeah. And then there's no going back. So, okay, so you spoke about the 4 different, I guess, ways people handle or attachment types. I think I've heard you refer to it in some of your content as well.
Yep.
Is there a better one? Are we trying to learn to be capable in all of them? Is there better ones in certain situations? Like, how do we navigate this? And what's someone to do? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, this is where the work really kicks in, man. So the holy grail is secure attachment.
But isn't security a human need?
It is, but again, when it comes to our choice between I need to survive and I want to thrive and take a risk and be bold, we default to survival.
Yeah, and that's why people,
which is a form of security.
Yeah,
because
I know that if I take this job at this big company, and they've got they'll pay my super and we get annual leave, and I know that every week we'll get paid and blah blah blah, and that whole life that everyone kind of falls into, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why like starting a business as an example is like going out into the wilderness. It's like being in a zoo.
Yeah, and saying I'm going to go on this
and being raised in a zoo, and then all of a sudden going out into the Amazon.
Yeah, and generally those animals don't survive, right?
Well, it's a lot harder because you've got to decondition. You're no longer being fed through the cage. You've now got to find your client.
No one's feeding you at all.
No one's feeding you. There isn't this warm, cozy bed at night. You've got to find shelter.
Yeah. There's no guarantee that you'll eat.
No guarantee. Yeah. So, secure attachment from a perspective of our stress response and our attachment is stemming back to that whole notion what I said earlier, Robby. It's like the child who self-abandons because they can't be themselves anymore and explore because of that family dynamic. So they self-abandon. So ultimately, most of us, like as adults, as we get older, we're all trying to return home. We're all actually trying to go back, and the work that I teach is going back and collecting that younger version of you that experienced certain things and bring them into the moment. And we do that by creating emotional safety within ourselves. That's the holy grail of being able to create secure attachment in your life, meaning that I'm securely attached to myself. I'm fully okay with who I am. I express myself authentically, and I don't abandon myself when I enter relationships, when I'm with a significant other, and I'm presently available for my family, my children and whatnot. I'm emotionally available. So like speaking to your mum and lots of other mums, including mine as well, a lot of them didn't know how to put their own oxygen mask on first.
Yes.
And so
100% agree.
Talking to that abandonment stuff, it's like mothers in particular that experience abandonment growing up. Now they become a mother, they emulate what their mother did. Yeah. Which is, it's make it all about the kids.
Kids first. Kids first. The kids need to be okay.
Exactly.
And they almost wear that like a badge of honor. Do you know what I mean? Like it was like a sense of pride. Like, no, we put the kids first.
Correct.
That's
it's a badge of honor, but then it turns into resentment and it turns into ill health for them eventually. Because when you're operating out of alignment from abandonment, you're saying, well, what are the warning signals? It's like, well, if you're in the zone where you think these things are normal, what ends up happening is the universe puts you in circumstances in order to help you awaken. So this is where I had my events. I've had multiple events. That event on 2019 was the final straw. I had multiple events that were probably even more severe than that one.
Do you mind sharing? You don't have to share specifically, but what are some examples of those events? Like what's something that someone might be experiencing now that would tell them like, hey, like something's fucking wrong, dude. Like, you need to fix this.
Yep.
Because I've heard a concept, you may have heard this as well. It's like first it's a whisper.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then it's someone calling your name.
Yes.
Then it's this. Then it's
Yeah,
that. Then it's a
yeah.
fucking bus.
Yep.
Don't do it before the bus comes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Shit, yeah.
Don't get hit by a bus.
Yes.
Do it when listen
Uh-huh.
and do it when you're getting the whispers
Yes.
about it
Yep.
and make the change then.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what are some of these experiences, or if you're comfortable to share your own, what are some of the stuff that
Sure.
people might be having now? Like for myself, what would I look out for?
Well, what's something, if you want to be you, if we want to do you, which is a great option, what is an area of your life right now that is creating a lot of frustration or friction? More than what you're used to?
Right now, I feel like there's a few different areas in my life that are doing that. I would say one would be one's business, one's relationships, one's
Yep.
and health is okay actually. But recently, 75 hard.
Yeah. I've done that a few times.
Recently did 75 hard.
Yeah, awesome, man.
That kind of got me into line.
Smash.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. You need that.
Yeah, it was a good reset.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
It was a great reset. I was hating it while I was doing it.
Yeah,
but I was so committed.
Yep.
Did the carnivore diet for 75 days.
Yeah, cool.
And
Nice.
dropped 13 kilos.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah.
Awesome, bro.
Come out of it
That's
pretty
mad.
good.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's
Okay.
decent.
So then if we were to just take one of them,
Yeah.
give me one that you'd love to kind
Go
of...
relationships.
Okay, relationship. Okay, so when you look at your relationships, there's an area where there's either a void,
Yeah.
there's a fantasy. So the root of all suffering, when I talk inside of my community, it's like when we've got friction, frustration, tension,
Yeah.
it's because of this thing. And I call it the fantasy versus the reality. Okay? We have a reality of a situation. So what's that for you in terms of relationship? I'll talk to the fantasy. What do you want in the relationship? What are you hoping that could be happening there or should be happening?
So if we were to talk about, say, like an intimate relationship.
Yeah, whatever
I
the
feel
relationship.
like, I feel like, I thought at this point in my life.
I love this, by the way. He's in the chair.
I thought at this point in my life, I'd be at a point where I had a family,
Yes,
a couple of kids. That was what I pictured.
Okay, gotcha, man.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
the fantasy.
Yep.
And I still want that.
Sure. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I appreciate your vulnerability as well here. So just sit with that for a moment, okay? So you have a statement right now, okay?
Yeah.
And the statement usually starts with I, and you said it just before, I should what?
I said I should have a family.
I should have a family by now.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So when you sit with that, this is where we start to be able to take a peek in some of the frustration that we may have, some of the sadness that you may have in and around seeing other people with a family as an example that might elicit a response for you. So that's the fantasy, I should. And usually when we're talking about fantasies in my world, it's usually I should, I shouldn't have done that, I shouldn't have done this, or I should.
Should's a horrible word.
Yeah. They should, they shouldn't is another form of a fantasy. So they shouldn't be
Kind of
doing
like
that.
expectations.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then there's the reality. So there's the reality of this is where you are right now. Okay. So the thing that creates the friction is that you've got a reality of here's where you are in your life. Here's where you thought you'd be. Here's where you should be. And then the question is, in order to alleviate that,
The gap.
it's to recognize that where you are is totally okay, but not from here. From here, from the body.
And how do you, so
the ability to do that is having a level of acceptance that where you are is nor right or wrong. It's just where you are.
just is.
And why? Well, it's because you can't be anywhere else right now because this is the only moment that you have. Like this is it. Where life is a series of moments that just keep rolling into the next and rolling into the next.
And this is now.
And this is right now. And here's the kicker. Because we have the should, we end up creating resistance and we end up creating friction. And whatever we resist persists. So when we're sitting in a place of judgment, because what's actually happening is you're saying you should be.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
if you should be and you're not.
So you're placing judgment upon yourself for where you are versus a level of acceptance and compassion for where you are. Because the whole irony is that your life could be better, should be better if you had this. And I can resonate because I thought when I had a family and I got married and I had kids that this void that I kept trying to fill this pursuit of like trying to fix me and everything would just take care of itself. Why? Because I'd heard from people that when they had kids, life changes, man. Just, can't explain it, dude, man. All the fathers that I spoke to.
Oh, dude, I hear that now.
Can't explain it, dude. Like, it's just this thing of like, and I thought, fuck. So when I have my firstborn, it's all going to come into alignment and I'm going to be sweet. Man, it got fucking worse.
It's like, this is the magic pill.
It got worse. It's like, fuck, I don't even know what to do with this thing. It's made more shit surface. And so then I began to resent my dynamic that I was in. I actually started to look at people that were single and gone, fuck, man, that was easier than this. Give me that. So there was this shouldn't statement. There was resistance. There was a gap that was creating more friction in my life. So to answer your question and then to help others that are listening, it's like recognizing where do you have a statement where things should be different. Because the moment you recognize you have an I should, I shouldn't, they shouldn't about whatever's going on in your life right now, for you it's relationships, it's meaning that we're not able to sit in the present and fully accept where we are and be okay with it and have compassion towards ourselves for where we are. Because the moment you do that and you arrive here and that friction is now gone, it makes you available to actually pursue the things that you really actually want to have in your life. It usually just clicks. So it's that whole thing of like the less you chase a family, the less you chase success, it's then drawn to you. And I see this all the time when I've coached men in particular. The less they've gone out chasing women after their divorce or whatever's happened, and they've gone in and actually reconciled with where they're at and accepted that, then they're like, hey man, you wouldn't believe it. Like just the other week I was at a bar, this girl, we're dating, she's like everything that I actually envisaged. Like, honeymoon phase, I get it, but, so I'm not saying that you're in that kind of circumstances right now, but what I found time and time again for myself as well, the less I chased something and the more I accepted and acknowledged where I was at and recognized that whilst I could be further along, like you could, I could also have been further behind, because both of them are simultaneously true.
Okay, can I challenge you on that?
Please.
So when you say, grab the jug of water behind you, please.
Thanks, buddy.
When we talk about yes, you could be behind, aren't you just doing the same thing? And I could be completely wrong here, and tell me if I am, but aren't we just talking about the same thing that most people do when there's dysfunction and they are just thinking this is normal? Like, kind of like,
well,
the word I want to use is justification.
Sure, I get you.
Not in the sense of not accepting.
Kind of like the positivity trap thing, yeah?
A little bit like that, yeah.
Yep. So, good point. There's a difference here, though, because one is, in one hand, we're attempting to deny a reality, yeah? By saying things could be better if I had this thing, this relationship, this business, this whatever.
Yeah, not accepting what is right now.
Correct. And then on the other hand, it's like, well, whilst that could be true, like we don't know, yeah? It could be true that if you have a family, things could be better.
Could be worse.
Statistically, though, the odds probably don't favour that given the divorce rate and the unhappiness rates in relationships, right? It's like through the roof. 50% divorce, 85% of people are unhappy in their intimate relationship. So they have that.
85%?
85%, bro. Probably more, to be honest. There's an element of unhappiness. There's resentment. There's stuff that's gone down and it's not functioning properly. So
that's a lot of people, man.
Heaps, man. Heaps. So the point of actually looking to the other side is that if we're trying to argue that it could be better here, the same could also be true on the other side. So when that process is to just help us neutralize something that both sides can be true.
Could be, yeah. Could go this way.
We don't fucking know. Why don't we know? Because where are we?
We're here.
We're fucking here, which is the truth. The question is, are we perceiving this truth right now to be a bad thing or a good thing? We're usually labeling it either side. The goal of the work that I teach people is to recognize that it's not good or bad. It just is. And what's your relationship to what is? Like, this is just where I am. Can I love myself regardless of where I find myself? Can I give myself compassion? Can I acknowledge how far I've come, yet recognizing that I could be further along, but I could also be further behind? Here is where I am. And then the kicker here is, how do we now gravitate and pull ourselves towards a place that we really love to be in? It's where we are very clear in our vision and our intentions, creating a life by design, not default. So it's then going, what are my values? What are my beliefs? What's my vision? And then beginning to create that in the now, going, well, if I'd love to have a family, have that in my vision. I want to have a family. I want to have a loving relationship. I'd love to have multiple children if I'm blessed enough to. I'd love to be living in this kind of area, doing this kind of work with these kinds of people. And then as you do that and you're very clear on that, it's the thing, it's your North Star that enables you to move through and begins to magnify, bring people to you rather than pursuing the rabbit, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, because the more we chase it, the further it runs. And so that's the shift that usually takes place in the work that I see for the people. For myself, was once I stopped trying to force things, because that was my nature, like, I'm going to fucking make this work. I'm going to force it, real estate. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to become successful at the cost of burnout. I'm going to force this thing over here at the cost of sedation on the weekends. Fuck, you know? And so, yeah, I don't know if that lands for you, brother, but that's...
No, it does.
You know,
it does.
yeah.
And at the cost of you sedating yourself on the weekend as well. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And getting to the point where you're like, there is so much tension day to day that it gets to the point where you're like, I need some sort of substance, something that I can... And for some people, it's escapism. This is where people, like, you'll go watch binge Netflix for 8 hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not normal. You know what I mean?
Or go watch 4 or 5 webinars.
Yeah. And you're just...
You're a personal development junkie, right?
It's avoidance.
Yeah.
Right? You're doing anything to not go and face the problem.
It's feel the feelings. That's why I said earlier, man, we've got a feeling epidemic. I had it, like a big drinking problem. It's been 100 days now. No alcohol, no substances, nothing. I said by the time I was 40 that it'd be done. Every time I'd said it previously, there was a part of me that knew I was going to return back to it. Like, I'm just saying it. I'm not embodying it. This time around, and I share this with my community, it's like there's a difference when you actually step into who you said you're going to be, and then you start making decisions from that place. And then that's when alignment kicks in. So there's been times, don't get me wrong, I still got alcohol in the fridge. I opened the thing, I'm like, oh, it's been a stressful week. Kids are sick.
Yeah.
Business this. And I look and I was like,
just
okay,
take the edge off.
Yeah, just take the edge off, man. So we got fakies. We got the 0-0, the Sahi 0-0. And it's like sometimes I drink it and I'm like, shit, this is real. But it's actually not. But
It's placebo almost.
placebo, yeah.
You associate the feeling to the flavor.
Yeah.
And then it starts to make you feel a certain way.
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's a never-ending discussion, isn't it? Really, like there's so many layers of depth that this goes into, and it all starts with awareness, man. Like it all starts with the courage.
Yeah.
Because I know people who they're not happy, but if you ask them, they won't say it.
Of course. Shame, guilt.
Yeah,
It's hard, man.
And you're like, are you happy with your life? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't need any more than this.
Yeah.
You know, or I don't have to. No, I don't want. I don't want a relationship, or I don't want. And it's like, it's the fear of admitting you want it, because then you got to do something about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? The fear of admitting that you're not happy with where you are, because then now, if you admit it, and you believe what you say, now you got to do something. That's got to follow through with some level of action that's going to allow you to.
Yeah. Or they don't. And it just lingers around. Like,
That's even worse.
I've got to do something about it. I know I got to do it. I've been there.
I've been there too.
Yeah.
I've
That's
been
it.
there
I'm going to the
too.
gym. I'm setting the 5 a.m. I'm waking up.
Or you do something, and then so the gym is a great example.
Yeah.
And you sign up to it. That's it. This is enough. You know, I've got to get my health in order. And you go and you sign up to a gym and you go for 2 weeks or maybe 2 months.
Yeah.
and then you start to
Yeah.
fall back
To the default.
to your old ways, man.
Yeah.
To your old ways, you start to fall back to your normal habits, and
Yep.
you go back to your emotional home.
Yes.
The same.
I have a question.
Yeah, go for it, man.
So, what are your thoughts about habits? Especially, have you guys read the book called Dopamination?
No.
So, yeah, it is a very good book.
Yep.
Just for a recommendation.
Sure.
What's it called?
Because-
Dopamination.
Yeah, Dopamination.
I have heard
I
of
think it's actually free on Audible.
Okay.
I think so.
I think I actually might have it on Audible, but I haven't listened to it. I've got heaps on there.
Yeah, because most of the stuff, the bad stuff we do, is because we want to have that dopamine boost. Correct?
A feeling.
So we're chasing a
We're
fix.
chasing.
For
We're
example,
chasing a feeling.
cigarettes,
Yeah, again.
alcohol, everything. They
Yeah.
have like this dopamine spikers in them
Correct.
that goes into us.
Yep.
And these habits, all the habits, gambling, everything, porn, whatever it
Yeah.
is, it's mostly connected to dopamine. And
In part, yes.
yes,
Yeah.
and we only have a finite amount of dopamine in our system every single day.
Correct.
It just resets.
Yeah.
And what are your thoughts about that?
Sure.
Especially habits.
Yeah. I think habits are powerful because that's part of one of the pillars that I teach inside of my community. But I was going to say earlier to your point, Robby, as well, that this whole everyone reverting back to the default of the way they did life. Everyone reverts back to the strategy that they've always had for life. We've all got this strategy for life. So from a perspective of habits, as an example, dopamine plays a part in it. So same as serotonin, same as your cortisol levels, that impacts your cholesterol. So there's a whole gamut of things that occur inside the system. Dopamine's a simpler way to explain habits, also known as addiction, if you will. But the underlying driver, the question that we need to ask ourselves is, why am I chasing that? What's pushing me towards that? It's that I want to feel something, right? Yeah? I want to feel a certain way. So then the next question is, well, what is it about the way I'm feeling now that I don't like? What is it about what's coming up in me now, which is also a feeling that I'm struggling with, that requires me to go and chase alcohol, porn, gambling, etc. And so that's the conversation that I like to have, is that we're experiencing a feeling right now that is not setting off dopamine. It's usually setting off cortisol, stress response. This is not good. So we then, of course, naturally, our bodies found a way to keep us surviving, because if we didn't have the source of chasing dopamine, we would have, like, we already think we've got an epidemic of suicide. We would have catastrophic numbers right now. If we removed all alcohol, gambling, screens.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of people who could not face reality.
We would, on the one part, everyone thinks if we just removed it all, this will be amazing. It'll actually be catastrophic, because
all of a sudden, all my fixes, all my vices have disappeared.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is the reason why people that are very wealthy, celebrities and whatnot, that have reached pinnacles in their life, end their life, because they've turned every stone, so they believe, in that they've got all the money, all the resources, all the fame, but yet can't escape the void of inadequacy, the pressure, the performing, all of that. And they're like, I've just got to end it, because if I've got all the money in the world and I can't fix this because it's all external strategies, except for Russell Brand's a perfect example of him recognizing drugs, external, then went in and did the internal work and was able to revive his life, change, his everything that he does now. So habits are powerful. The reason why they're hard to change is because the strategies that we've developed now, the habits that we have created right now, have all been created out of a need to survive. So to let go of a habit is extremely challenging, because it's been designed at a time where, on the one part, you've witnessed your parents growing up in a particular way, so you develop strategies to cope. And so letting go of this structure, being vulnerable, and then trying to create a new habit is really hard. The system won't accept the new habit. So one of the ways that we teach inside of our community is in order to the ability to receive information, then implement, comes down to whether we can create safety within our body. So that is disarming the bodyguard, the secret services, to allow ourselves to be available, emotionally available, to create secure attachment, to then start stepping into this new identity, because the way I teach habits is a habit coincides with an identity. So you can say, I want to go to the gym, which is what I've said many, many times, but I didn't have an identity built around.
Okay, I'm a person who trains.
I'm a person who trains. I also see myself as physical, and I can understand that when I train, my business gets better, my life gets better, my this gets better. It wasn't encompassed and encapsulated. So therefore, the commitment to go and train and wake up felt more like a chore rather than an empowering thing of like, we know we feel better after we train, but it's like, why can't we bring that feeling before, the alarm goes off, or it's like, fuck. So that's kind of my view on habits. But in all honesty, habits have been a hard thing for me, because developing new habits when you've got unresolved trauma, it's like your system is trying to keep you surviving. So it'll keep you stuck in that.
Like something pulling the other way.
Correct. Yep. Anything new is deemed unsafe if we're not regulated.
New is deemed unsafe, and your brain's not designed to make you happy.
No.
It's designed to keep you alive. Do you think, we talk about dopamine and habits, and there's two ways I want to take this. One, like social media, like and the notifications. Like they know what they're doing. They've got it all down pat.
Crazy, man.
They understand the game. They understand, why, how to get us addicted to it.
Yep.
And most people are.
Yeah.
And I delete the apps from my phone.
Yeah.
I've
gone through those phases too.
Oh, dude, I delete them from my phone. I have ways of like
Accessing
posts are
yourself.
scheduled.
Yeah.
I get DMs through
Yep.
another app.
Yep.
So like something I've connected it to a CRM
okay.
system, so
Yeah,
I
wow.
can still respond to people.
Okay.
And I only download the app if I have to do something, and then I'll try and get it off my phone as quick as possible. Sometimes I leave it on, and then I'll notice I'm spending too much time on it. Delete it. Boom. Delete it.
That's an effort, brother. It would have taken a lot to get to, huh?
Yeah, but it was like a thing of I'd get to the end of the day, and I'm like, screen time.
Yeah.
It's awareness. It's
Yeah.
like face the demon.
Yeah.
Just look.
Yeah.
Fuck, 94 minutes
Yeah.
on Instagram.
Yeah,
what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah,
94 minutes. That's, do you know what I mean? That's a
Content
percentage
creation,
of
man.
my. you know what I mean? That's a research.
Yeah.
That's a percentage of my day. But like, okay, you want to do the research? Actually go and do research for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, jump on your computer, do the research,
Yeah.
and then close it off and
Yep.
sign out and
Yeah,
call
man.
it a day.
I know.
Don't sit there, because
Hey, I've been in this trap, man.
Dude.
It's tough.
It's
Especially
fucking-
now being a business owner, it's like there's these memes, right? It's like
You
if
gotta
you're a
stay
business
connected.
owner, you're a content creator.
well, yeah, all
like-
business owners are like media agencies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So you have to be all over it. And they've got us hooked on that. But you talked about the gym example. And when I was doing 75 hard, which I mentioned before, I was up 5 a.m. Well, I knew I had to get my first workout in the morning, otherwise I was going to get caught out. And I'd announced that I was doing this thing publicly.
Yep,
So I was
yep.
like, I can't
Yeah,
fail this,
yeah,
man.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
So I was up, boom, 5 a.m., go to the gym, get it done, And now, fuck, is it a mission to get up and go to the gym?
Man. Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's like, why?
Identity. On the first part, the accountability aspect. So people like you and I, because I can relate to this. This was my story. Like when I was single, it was a hell of a lot easier for me to train. Get the rig out, feel strong, all this kind of stuff. It was just
there's
easy.
a driver.
Yeah. And I was working in mining, so I didn't really have a business.
You were working in
I used to
mining.
work in mining. Yeah, before real estate. So as an electrician.
Sparky, yeah.
So there's a gym on site, food taken care of. I was training twice a day, man. I was ripped. But different beasts to now. Different things have changed. But one of the things that I've learned, it comes back to that self-abandonment and that identity, is that when we don't have full alignment within ourselves, our identity is not fully clear yet, we haven't had the capacity to step into it, then we usually don't honor our own values. Why wouldn't we honor our own values? Because most of our values won't be clear. So this comes back to that whole, where's your vision? What are your values? Yeah. And then creating habits that are assigned to the values that you want to live your life by and the vision that you're creating and stepping into every single day. A lot of people think vision is, this is where my life will be 10 years from now, but the vision is now. It's actually you stepping into the identity of what you said you wanted to experience 10 years from now, how you want to be received, the type of family you'd like to have, career, income, body, all of that.
Doing it now.
but then embodying it now, saying, well, if this is how I'm going to be spoken about at my eulogy, like I have children, they're going to say Dad was this and he was amazing and he was caring and he's kind and he was whatnot. It's like, well, I get the opportunity to step into that now. And so if part of the vision is I'm going to be fit, lean, strong so that I can live a longer life, spend more time with my grandkids, then when it comes time for these, you know, waking up at 5 a.m. if that's the goal, it's then like,
You've connected the dots.
I've connected the dots, correct, of like, ooh, there's more meaning now than I'm just going to the
this
gym.
is not getting up at 5 a.m. This is
Correct, yeah.
setting my legacy.
This is like, oh, wow, this is the vision now. Like, yeah, and then here's the kicker. When you do it and you've gone in and you've connected it to the whole North Star thing, it's like you start to feel empowered. You're walking around a little bit more taller. There's a bit more alignment. There's a bit more integrity. And so I always found it easier being held accountable to other people, like go to a gym with somebody else. If they said we'll meet at 5 a.m.
Get
or if it's a golf trip, I'm always there. But when it was things for myself, I wasn't. And the key indicator for me was that my vision was never really set. It was never really clear. My values weren't. So every morning I was not waking up stepping into something. I was waking up kind of like,
it was a drag.
Because I stayed up late last night. I was doing the business proposal. I was, scrolling.
Yeah.
And because I'm pursuing success and not allowing it to come to me because of how I show up. So that was my big kind of in that, And for me now, it's the excuses are, 3 kids. Sometimes there's nights they wake up, a little gym set up at home. So it's like, well, if I can't do the 1 hour workout, I can do the rings and the push-ups and that. Like I can do 10, 15 minutes. Something that enables me to keep,
Yeah. I recall seeing a video the other day and he's like, we need to look at things in spectrums. And he's like, if the perfect morning is get up, to feel refreshed, go to the sauna, do an ice bath, train, you know what I mean? All that, like that's the perfect morning, meditate, gratitude. He's like, what's the worst type of best morning we can have? And he goes, here, if I've got 2 hours, I can do all that. He's like, if I've got 10 minutes, I can still do 150 push-ups.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He's like, as long as I get somewhere in between here and here, I've done the best I can that day to set my day off in the right direction.
100%.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty powerful.
Small wins. It'd be nice to have that 2 hours every morning and just...
Yeah, it'd be good.
I want to go one step deeper. Mm-hmm. So have you guys read the book? It's called It Didn't Start With You by Mark Wolin.
No, I have heard about it though.
Okay, so this book mostly talks about, some of the things can be genetically passed to you from your ancestors.
I've heard this, like genetically passed through trauma.
Dr. Bruce Lipton.
Yeah, so for example, if your grandparents were in war and they hear very loud gun noises, ballistics or whatever it is, you yourself as a person could get shocked by loud sounds and get anxious, anxiety, or like survival instincts kick in.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about that? Could it be like deeper, like
of course,
genetically
it is.
deeper?
It's a generational problem that we have. So we've just, there's a great question too.
Yeah, but so do you think, I don't know enough about this, but do you think that it is, because the claim there is that it's genetic, it's not, because a lot of what we're taught.
Yep.
Have you read The Courage to be Disliked?
No.
Good book.
No.
So he refers to things like how you do. Like instead of, it's not I think this and therefore I do that.
Yeah.
It's I do that which makes me think this.
Yes.
And it flips it around.
Yeah. Nice.
And they refer to like normal way of thinking is, you grew up in this environment and that caused this trauma. This states the other way around.
Yeah.
And it states that, no, that was genetically passed on. Like they could have technically, based on that statement, you could take the baby out of the environment and it's still going to have the same.
Yeah. So,
you know what I mean?
So where there's a yes to this, but then there's some ambiguity. Dr. Bruce Lipton speaks about this, epigenetics in particular. He's like one of the godfathers in this space. He talks about the notion of genetics loads the gun and the environment pulls the trigger. So what does that mean?
Genetics loads the gun?
Genetics loads the gun and the environment pulls the trigger.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
So the epidemic that we're talking about right now, that I say we've got a feeling problem, activation, secure attachment, all this stuff that we've spoken to, is coming from our parents, their parents, their parents, grandparents. That's where it's stemming from. We've got a generational trauma cycle that is now rearing its head massively. Why? Because the wars that occurred, the famines that were occurring back 100 years ago, they didn't have time to process emotions. When therapy...
Oh, dude, I talk about this all the time. I say, man, like life has gotten good recently. Do you know what I mean?
Even when therapy was created and designed, it was designed to help women stay in their relationships and just manage what was going on, not to leave relationships.
How old is therapy? The whole...
Good question. I can't remember the year, but I think it was
It wouldn't be that old.
early 1900, like 1920, 30.
Which is
maybe
not that
something
old.
like Not that old, no.
Yeah,
No, but it was merely designed to keep families together, to keep women in that kind of dynamic. And so the genetic sides of things is that there is predispositions if your parents... There's two parts. There's one of what your parents experienced, yeah? So if dad and his grandpa were always under stress, their nervous systems are activated, they're running high cortisol, that's going to change the way they show up, and it's going to change how they eat, what they eat, how they sleep. So it's going to affect their sperm count, the cells, and all those kinds of things. So it's going to influence stuff, yeah?
Yeah. Which makes sense. If you think about humans as organisms,
Yes.
you're going to see the flow-on effect.
Correct. So the bloodline, if you will, starts to be activated in a particular way. Now, it doesn't mean that a baby, if your parents were in war and you're born, like there's no more war. If there's war while you're being born and you're in the womb, then it's more aggressive. Yeah, because you're in the womb, mum's stressed, her nervous system is activated, and that's getting filtered through the umbilical cord.
Yeah.
You're getting all of that. We're already, as a baby in the womb, predicting what's going on in the environment. Now, when we're in our father's sack, it's another case, right? It's like, well, he's got his stuff going on. Doesn't mean that if he was responsive to loud noises at you being born in this environment today in Melbourne, Australia, that you're going to be affected by loud noises. Not necessarily. Doesn't mean that. But what's likely going to occur is that if as a child you start to find yourself in environments that are chaotic and whatnot, it will activate certain genes and cells in your system that have already been there, that would have potentially been dormant. Now they're being woken up because generationally this is a common theme that was occurring. So this is where Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about it, and it probably says it in, what was the book that you mentioned? It wasn't your fault.
It doesn't start with you.
It doesn't start with you. Yeah. Is that whole notion of, in some of the work that I do, it's like the question of, if you've got some trauma, there's a question that I ask them. It's like, was this after birth? There's a question that we ask them to go in their conscious, unconscious mind. Was it after birth, during birth, or before?
Who did people say before?
Yeah, because they're tapped in. They're like in a deep hypnosis of of reflective, like, shit, did this happen? When did this happen? And not all the time, but some of the time people will say, this is before time. Like, I'm carrying something that my mother carried, that her mother carried, that,
That's insane.
It's insane because then they might go and ask their mum, hey, your mother or your grandmother, do you remember much about her? Because they'll get a download of something that has been genetically passed down that they're actually experiencing right now. Very common in Indigenous, very common in the Israeli, with Auschwitz and all that took place, where people that are doing trauma now, they're actually shedding the things that occurred way back.
But their grandparents or great-grandparents.
Correct. Yep.
That's insane, man. Isn't that insane? Like,
it's crazy, man. It is crazy. But we're all energetic beings. We're made up of cells. We're made up of positive and negative. We're made up of cells. A cell has both positive and negative. So that's why I used that example earlier about things could be worse, things could be bad. Yeah. That's the duality. That's the polarity of life, that there is an equal opposite of a negative and a positive every single time. That's how the universe works. We have to be always in balance. That's why there's as much bad happening as much, quote unquote, good happening.
Don't you think everyone has some level of trauma?
100%. just being born is a traumatic event. Even if your mother was really calm, kind, the whole dynamic at home was beautiful. Your father was very loving and supporting and nurturing, and he was emotionally available. Back in our day, like back when we were kids, it was very rare, right? Coming out of the womb, whether it's getting cut open or through, the canal, that's an experience in itself. First air.
Yeah. Go from being inside a womb covered in liquid to taking your first breath.
I have another question.
Go for
So
it.
it's pretty much for the listeners, because most of them might have not read the book, The Body Keeps the Score. So you were talking about child trauma. And there is a section about a child who draws his experience from 9/11. Do you remember that?
A child who what?
A child who draws a picture of from 9/11, his experience.
Yeah.
So what he draws is that he draws a mattress outside the window of the 9/11 building.
Yeah.
So what he says oh, my parents will put a mattress underneath there. And he didn't had any trauma about the event because the parents were his security.
So is that referring to the people jumping out of the building and
putting a mattress there.
Like, so that-
Yeah, so the child
Yeah.
did experience the 9/11 event. But
He was alive during the event, from
I
memory.
think so that's after
it was a
the
few
event.
years later.
Yeah. So he draws this photo,
Yeah.
this picture.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts about that, and how does it connect
Yeah.
to the dots?
Sure. Well, I can't remember the exact details of the book. It's ages ago since I read the book, but from memory, or the context of that is that whilst we may not experience significant trauma in our home growing up, like it can, there's secure attachment, our parents are available, there's steadiness, there's groundedness and all that kind of jazz, we've still got society. Like we've got, even when I drive my kids to school sometimes and the radio turns on, I usually don't have any music on or any radio on. Sometimes I put some music on for them. When I hit the radio on, there's and reports last night in Melbourne, there was a fatal stabbing, and this is 8 o'clock in the morning. So they're hearing that. Same as they're hearing what's going on in Palestine and stuff right now, or Ukraine, and they're asking questions like, "Oh, Dad, what's going on here?
why are they killing people?"
That's putting an imprint on them. So, in the context of that boy who didn't have a direct involvement, the whole world was talking about it. He would have heard it in conversations.
I think I have to make it clear a little bit. So the context is that the child did experience the 9/11 event.
Okay.
So what happened is that he actually didn't get any trauma out of it because the parents were his security.
Sure.
Which shows that
Yep.
for young children, the parents can either be a blessing or a curse.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
I wanted to
Yep.
get an answer from the side of a blessing, because you did talk about how if a parent hits a child, the child
Correct.
jumps back into the survival mode.
Correct.
Okay,
gotcha. Yeah. Okay, nice. So, yes. Okay, so the whole goal, remember, was secure attachment. The fight between authenticity and secure attachment. So a child who's got secure attachment by his parents or her parents has the capacity to authentically discover themselves. In that narrative, I'm going to go back and actually have a look at it, and I'll flick you guys an email on my thoughts or a video. Is, you can have the dynamic of two siblings growing up in the same environment at home, and one turns out to be a successful business person, family and whatnot, and one turns out to be a drug addict, as an example, and ends up in prison.
There's a great story about that.
Yeah, there's quite a few. You use this example. And it's well, what's the difference? They both experience the same thing, right? Growing up, similar. First thing is that they both didn't experience the same parenting. Because we've got this conception that you grew up in a home that if you and I are brothers, Robby, it's our father or our mother parents us exactly the same way.
And
they
don't.
actually don't.
Yeah.
Every parent, so I've got 3 children, they both have 3 different mothers and 3 different fathers. So that's the first thing. They get parented slightly different, even though at times I don't want to admit it. The tone is different here. The punishment may be a little bit different there. The connection shifts.
Yeah, but it would be weird if you spoke, because they're different humans.
Correct.
And
correct.
it'd be weird if you spoke to them all in the exact same way.
Well, but here's the problem though. Growing up, a lot of people are like, oh, Thing was the golden child, or you took care of, sister more, not me. And parents, that can't see that will deny it. No. We loved you the same. We treated you the same. Whereas when my son says it to me, Dad, you take care of Orlando differently and he doesn't get in trouble as much and whatever. I was like, yeah, you're right, son. I said, you guys do experience different versions of us and that must be really hard for you. So I validate and I acknowledge that. And then all of a sudden it doesn't become a thing for him anymore. But coming back to the drawing, so in that scenario, what could be true is that the child's interpretation of the events was nothing really bad happened because the parents didn't have the energy of this is really, really bad. They kept it secure, they kept it tight. But on the flip side of it, I'd love to know how old that child is now and whether there's been any repercussions, because what can occur and what does occur in situations where there is trauma is that we bypass. And bypassing is we create a fantasy of what we think it should look like, what it could be. We create a narrative, like as an example, in so many of the clients that I've worked with that say, oh, look, my parents weren't that bad. My parents weren't bad. Well, I don't remember much of my childhood. It was pretty good. And then when we start to unpack, there's some significant events that have taken place that they've chosen to either forget, bypass because they couldn't process it. So that could be potentially what's occurring there. It's either the parents were very emotionally available, understood the assignment, created a secure line where that child felt nurtured, but the fact that there's a drawing of a mattress, for me, is a slight indication of potential bypass in there.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense as well. Because even if you could get all of that right and still having a traumatic experience like that, which the parents could have done everything right and the kids still could have reacted differently. Do you know what I mean? But it sounds like, I would lean more towards that in the sense of they have not processed it in the correct way.
Yep.
They've bypassed it.
Yeah.
And one day they may unpack it, or they may not. They may live with whatever beliefs that they've come from that for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
And most people do that, right?
Yeah. The question is, which one is the healthier one at the time? It's like, well, the mattress drawing is less chaotic. So if there's some bypassing in there, right now. But if the child has witnessed everything and heard it and was at school and everyone's still talking about it and the kid says, oh, but people jumped out and it's like, oh, shit, what is this? Like my interpretation wasn't actually that bad, We just don't know. But eventually we find out. That's a thing.
Yeah,
eventually
most of the time.
Yeah,
most of the time it ends up coming back to haunt you in one way or another.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting conversation, man.
This has been great. Great.
Oh, I have more questions. Okay, this is gonna be the last one. Sorry.
Cool, man. Cool.
So
I think we're gonna get wrapped up there. I think.
I was just conscious of time. Are you parked in an okay spot?
We'll see.
So this one isn't too much related. It's just that what's your point of view on this topic? So we've touched genetics, right? Mm-hmm. But the human body is mostly made out of bacteria. That is the interesting part, because the studies show that we're only 10% human and 90% bacteria. And bacteria, it changes the whole person, and everything around us, the environment, everything we eat, drink, it changes our microbiome.
Yeah.
And do you think, do you know about this kind of stuff, and how does it affect your psychological way? Because we do know about it changes your microbiome, whatever is happening, but does it change your thought process?
Yeah. Okay.
I
Great
reckon
question.
it does.
Well, I was going to throw it back to you guys, actually.
I reckon it does. I reckon when you want to talk about your gut, right?
Yeah.
When you eat shit for
Burger, chips.
when you eat that, it's it's a quick fix.
Yeah.
It's mouth pleasure, as Joe Rogan likes to call it.
Yeah.
But over the long term, you don't feel better for eating like that for 20 years. You definitely don't feel better. You don't think clearly. My health, knock on wood, I've been pretty blessed to never have anything really go wrong. And when I went through the 75 hard and I did the carnivore diet strict, I felt the same.
Yeah.
And you see all these other people doing it and they're like, oh my God, I'm thinking clearly. And it's like, cool, you must have been eating like shit before.
Yeah.
I was okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was put on a little bit of weight, but I still had some level of health consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
And I truly believe that the things you eat and how you impact your gut impacts how you feel, how you think, how you do
Without a
everything.
doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, man.
Yeah. And people took, I think Tom Bilyeu touches on that heaps. He talks about
Yep.
how everything, they say all disease starts in the gut.
Yeah. Well, it's the second brain.
Yeah, it is.
And so, here's the not the funny thing, because it's not funny, but the connection between unresolved trauma and autoimmune disease is astronomical.
Yeah, it's almost like there's a direct line between
There's
them.
a 100% direct line,
Yeah.
because when we experience trauma, the nervous system is activated. When the nervous system is in a stress response, guess what system is not working? Have a guess. The immune system.
Yeah, I was about to say
Immune
that.
system's not fucking working. So when your nervous system and your security guard comes out, your actual defense mechanism
Drops off.
completely. So then when people start the journey of working through their traumas and whatnot, guess what ends up happening?
All the autoimmune
They get
stuff.
really sick. No,
Oh, they get really
when they
sick.
don't treat it. You ask what's the wake up calls? You know, do they know? Usually, what ends up happening is they start to experience something in their life, like something feels a little
It
bit
shows
off.
up. Yeah, it shows up in some way.
Something feels a little bit off. Self. Then we ignore it.
Yeah.
Then what
My
ends up?
energy's low.
There's
I'm
a-
not doing this.
correct.
I feel, I can't be fucked.
100%.
Blah, 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 whatever it is.
I call it the 4 stages. First stage is something feels a little bit off. It's normal. Everyone's going through it. Second stage is your circle, influence, people around you. The environment starts to send you messages. Somebody starts commenting on, hey man, you okay? Hey, I noticed, you start getting feedback from the environment.
Externally.
Externally. We ignore it. Yeah, I'm fine. It's all good. There's a bit of stress. I'm sleeping. Well. Third one is physiological symptoms. Stuff starts to happen. Blood pressure's up.
Yeah.
Cholesterol, back pain, that shoulder, that neck thing just doesn't go.
Headaches.
So then the universe is saying, hey,
Wake the fuck up.
sending this signal, you got some stuff going down. And then when we don't pay attention to that one, Murphy's Law is the fourth. What can go wrong will go wrong. That's where the event will take place. Separation, major health scare, whatever, financial carnage. An eruption takes place proportionate to the level of which it needs to wake us up at. Now, some see it as, wow, this is the wake-up call, I need to take care. Some just see it as, okay, well, this is just, life's happening to me, not for me kind of thing. And so...
Victim.
Yeah. It's like, fucking this is happening and that's happening, and this is happening and
fucking
that's
this happened to
happening.
me.
And then they have another wake-up
can't
call,
catch a
and then they
break.
have another wake-up
Yeah.
call, and then that's breaking down, and that's breaking down. And then they're usually in a statement of, why does this keep happening to me? Why does this keep happening to me? This is not fair. Life's not fair. Or if it's a religious perspective, why is God choosing this on me as an example? So the connection to the gut in particular with women with unresolved trauma, autoimmune disease is through the roof. Crohn's disease, just rampage. So yes to that. And then to the food perspective, the question goes back to everyone listening now. It's like, how do you feel after you drink certain things, after you eat certain things, popcorn, this, whatever
But
it is?
you know what? It becomes a normal feeling when you do it for so long and you're like, no, I feel fine.
Yeah.
But then go eat clean for a year or
Yeah.
go do now since I did the carnivore diet, anytime I eat something that's off,
Yeah.
I feel it straight
Yeah,
away.
yeah.
It's because it's almost like my guts had a reset.
Yeah.
Right. And I've set the bar, reset the bar.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool. We need to feel like this all the time.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you do it regularly, the bar
Yeah, man.
comes down to here.
Well, I don't know if you guys heard, but just recently there's some videos circulating around the scientists, the tobacco scientists. So the guys that influenced the tobacco market and created the products of tobacco, cigarettes. After that,
About food.
they've gone into the food sector. And so all the processed food has been engineered specifically to want us to have more, to make us feel as though that we're full, to give us a perception of having nutrients and whatnot, but then to elicit and change the chemicals that are going on inside of our gut bacteria, the microbiome, all of that kind of stuff to influence, to keep us in a dull state. The goal is...
I believe that.
The goal is that, keep us kind of numb, keep us dumb, and we kind of conform and we just keep going about and feeding the system.
Why? This could go into a whole other topic now.
If you've got an empowered race who know how to take care of themselves, who are in alignment, you've got a world that is moving in a very different direction. You
Isn't
can't
that
control.
what we want?
It's what we want, a
As
portion
human
of us.
beings?
Well, yeah, but
Like
I mean,
for the species?
ideally, yeah. But if you look at the way the society is structured, there is a certain group of people that monopolize the entire world, and
Yeah.
from the schooling system into into the health system, into the wealth system, it's
Yeah,
all
banking
designed in a
system.
particular way where we plug into this thing, not really tap into our potential. And so, that's kind of my view on that. Everything is connected, So
Like society is its own living organism. Like every single company, it is an organism.
yeah.
Yeah, well, that's
When
that in itself is a whole topic
Man, I was
that
going
we
to say
could have a
we're nearly delving
podcast.
into Joe Rogan. I got the mushrooms in the bag.
We're gonna start talking about aliens.
You got the weed. It's fascinating, man.
I've appreciated this conversation, man. It's been an awesome conversation, and I feel like we've barely touched the surface of that whole world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people listening would have gotten a lot out of it. And if you're seeing the signs, if you know that something's not right, this is your sign right now that you're listening to this to go and do something about it. You know what I mean? To go and try and work out what it is or make that change or at least acknowledge it. The first step in any sort of change is awareness. You need to know it's there to be able to make some sort of change about it. If people want to connect with you, man, if people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Cool, man. Well, firstly, thanks for having me. Yeah. The socials, Fabien, Fabien, Pato, Pataud. Just connect with me on socials. I'm pretty active on there. And if you've got a deeper question, then just email Fabien, Fabien at the reset at resetmethod.com.au. And just ping me an email. But like to what you said, I think it's if you're in a business and you've got challenges, as I said earlier, personal problems usually manifest in business issues. And if you've got relationship dynamics right now, relationships reflect back to us where we're not free. And so, if you're being triggered and there's some stuff going down, the ability to look into the mirror and go, ooh, what is it that's within me that is unresolved, that needs attention? That's the purpose of a relationship. Actually, relationships help us get closer to ourselves. And when we do that, that's when we can get closer to each other. So
it's like the book I'm reading now, The Courage to be Disliked, talks about it. All problems are interpersonal relationships. You know what I mean? Every single problem in life. It all starts there.
So true, man. So true.
It's a great book. Great book.
Who's the author? Do you remember?
Japanese guy.
Yeah, it's a Japanese guy. It's actually a Japanese book written in Japanese, translated to English.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
I can't remember who the author is, but it's called The Courage to be Disliked.
Yeah, I'll put that on the list.
Yeah, great book.
Yeah.
It's pretty much two people conversating
Okay.
in the book. Yeah, it's like a
wow.
story. It's like a
Yeah.
philosopher and a kid talking the whole
Yeah,
book.
cool.
And the kid's asking questions and the philosopher's explaining.
Shit, I like that style.
Yeah,
That's
it's
mad.
cool because then it's an easy read.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's kind of like you're reading a conversation. You're
Yeah.
like, okay, that's okay. I
Yeah,
agree with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, cool.
One of those books that's easy to digest.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome,
All right.
man.
Awesome, man. Well, appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, brother.
Guys, if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe and like this episode. Share it with someone who you think may get something from it. And I think we'll have to eventually at some point get you back on it and dive into this whole the world
Yeah, man.
topic.
Yeah,
Because that's
100%.
a whole topic that we could dive into, definitely.
Damn, buckle up.
Buckle up.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate
right.
you having me, man. And
Appreciate you coming on.
hopefully we've helped somebody. Yeah.
I reckon we have.
Yeah.
I reckon we have.
Legend, man.
All right, awesome. Thanks, guys.